This is Known Podcast, hosted by Dustin Bennett, the lead pastor of Known Victory Church in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Known Podcast is dedicated to helping you grow closer to Jesus, unleashing the power of your creativity, and developing you as a leader. We hope you enjoy today's episode.
Welcome back, Known Podcast. So excited that you're joining us again today for another episode, and thank you for being a part of this conversation. And the conversation we want to have today is called The Space Between. You know, as human beings, transition and change are a part of all of our stories. You know, maybe we're in the middle of transitioning jobs or moving to a new city, moving to a new house, starting university, starting high school, having kids, or slowly becoming empty nesters. Maybe you're starting a business, downsizing your home, or your company or organization is in the middle of getting new leadership, and you know that big changes are coming. Transition and change are a part of the human story. You know, one thing that coincides with being human is transition and change. They are all a part of our world, whether you like it or not. Transition and change are a part of your story. Change will come, and change is coming, right? This is a part of being human. And the conversation, the space between, is really when you're in the middle of transition from where you were to where you're going, what you do in that space, the space between where you were and where you're going, is really important. You know, I heard somebody once say, when it came to storms or in life, that either you're entering a storm, you are in the middle of a storm, or you're coming out of a storm. And often as humans, this space is scary. The space between where you were and where you're going is scary. It's long. It's confusing. It's frustrating. A lot of emotions come up when you're in the space between where you were and where you were going. We don't like the sensation of not knowing what's next, right? We don't. We would like to have control. We like to know what's coming. We like to know what it is that we're entering into. And for a lot of us, we don't actually know. We don't like waiting for the next thing, whether it's exciting or excruciating. We don't like the waiting. We don't like the patience side. We don't like the faithfulness side. We don't like the loyalty side. Some of us, we just want to quit, right? We're just like, I don't even want to know if this is the direction I want to go. I don't even know if this is a change I want or a transition that I want to have happen. And what we do in this space, though, is so important. And oftentimes we approach this space with three different attitudes. We grumble, we complain about it, we don't want it to happen. We're like, no, I'm done. This is horrible. I hate this. We complain, we grumble, or we panic, right? We're like, just so much fear comes in, starts to creep in, and we're so scared of what the future might look like. It seems so uncertain. It seems sometimes so unnecessary. So we grumble, we panic, or we just start striving. We're like, I'm going to work as hard as I can. I'm going to burn myself out. I'm going to take the control that I do have by striving in order to make it different, make it easier, whatever. And so these are attitudes that we often have. But as I think all of us know, these attitudes, they often leave us tired, scared, and lost. And so what I want to do today is I want to walk us through three trades that we can make when we are in the space between that I think will help all of us navigate transition, navigate change, navigate the space between a lot better, to learn to be more adaptable and really learn to lean on God throughout the journey. So the first trade that we can make is trade grumbling for gratitude. You know, as humans, we love to grumble. We love to complain when we don't get our own way. You know, we're driving and we're stuck in traffic and we love to complain about it. We grumble. Our bonuses don't hit and we blame our bosses. We blame our organization. We blame the vision. We don't see our vision becoming our reality, and we ask God if he even cares, if he even loves us. We love to grumble. We love to complain. And in fact, I think sometimes for a lot of us, grumbling is fun. Like, we actually enjoy the grumbling part. We get to complain about our circumstances. We get to bring other people into our fear. We get to bring other people into our misery. We get to allow grumbling and complaining to be a part of our story. But I think it's time for us to trade grumbling for gratitude. I think it's time for us to look at the future with excitement, with optimism as we look at what's coming. You know, the things around you, they might not look like you expect. You might be tired. You might be afraid, but you aren't alone. right? I think we need to understand that the gratitude is so important when we're in the space between. Why? Because if all we're doing is grumbling, it doesn't make that space very fun. It doesn't make you a fun person to be around. We would rather be around people who are grateful than grumblers, right? And so we need to learn how to trade grumbling, trade complaining, trade it for gratitude in our lives. Because what happens when we grumble, when we complain, is our minds, our eyes are on everything that's going wrong around us. We don't have the money. We don't have the time. We don't have the family. We don't have the education. This sucks. I don't like the future. It's so uncertain. I'm scared, right? Where our eyes are on the wrong things. If we learn to be grateful, we can realize how much blessings we actually have in our lives. We can start to understand how much what God is actually still doing in our lives. We can live a life of gratitude even when things aren't going our way. Even when the space between is bleak and it seems mundane, you always have something to be grateful for. It might be time to open your eyes and realize the blessings you already have. I think sometimes our blessings have become burdens because what we blessed for is actually a lot of work. The blessing we prayed for, we got it. It's actually a lot of work. And then now we're like, no, God, but I need the more because this is just, it's too much for me or whatever it is. You know, we need to learn how to start being grateful for what we have, not be grumblers and wish we had what we don't have. When we are in the space between, it's so easy to grumble. It's so easy to complain. Why? Because it's natural. It's natural to complain. It's natural for us to want the more. It's natural for us to want more, to want things to be different. That's natural. But what's not natural oftentimes is gratitude. Let us learn to trade grumbling, to stop complaining about everything and start celebrating what we already have. Yes, things are changing. Yes, things are looking different. Yes, you don't know what the future is going to look like. Yes, it might seem weird. Yes, it might seem this. It might seem that. But God is doing something beautiful. Learn to be grateful for what He is doing. Start to stop complaining and start celebrating what God is doing. Number 2, the second trade we can make is this: trade panic for peace. We panic because we have lost control. You know, what happens is panic comes in for real when we lose control. And so what we do is we start freaking out. We start saying things. We start doing things. We start acting out. Like we start doing everything because we're so scared of what the future might look like. We're so scared of the space between that we do whatever we can. But the reality about panic is that it drains you. It destroys you. Because it doesn't add a second to your life. It doesn't add anything to your life. And so we need to learn how to trade panic for peace. Why? Because panic is exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. And I remember when COVID first started. And if you remember, if you look back at that, panic was everywhere. Facebook, on the news. Everywhere you looked, panic was there. People were buying all the toilet paper. People were buying all the cleaning supplies. People were buying all the hand sanitizer. People were buying all the masks. People were freaking out and panicking. Why? Because that's what really was being fed was panic. Everything's wrong. Everything's horrible. We're all panic kept in. And when I look back on that, I think how much time and energy did I waste panicking rather than actually seeking God's peace? Panic is exhausting. It will leave you tired. It will leave you sore. It will leave you broken. But peace restores you. Peace is way better than panic. Peace says, I can't control what's happening around me, but I can control what's happening within me. Panic is us doing whatever we can to hold on to the little control that we have. Panic is exhausting, and peace is life-giving. When we are in the space between, let's use our energy in pursuing peace rather than breeding panic and wasting our energy on something that will never actually help us. Let's give ourselves to trust in God with what's next. We can trust Him that when my mind starts to panic, His peace will come. When our mind starts to panic, His peace will come, right? That's His promise to us. When the storms come, when fear comes, when my mind goes to panic, when my mind goes to anxiety, when my mind goes to this, the promise is His peace will come, right? He says, peace, be still. He'll calm the storms. Peace, be still. That when my fear comes, He says, peace. The calm comes and our energy is restored. Let's use our energy when we're in the space between, use our energy to pursue peace rather than be bombarded by panic. And the third trade that we can make when it comes to the space between, the third trade we can make is this: trade striving for seeking. Striving, it's not necessarily bad. And in a lot of ways, striving is important. Working hard, striving is important, but striving without rest is a disaster waiting to happen. Striving without rest is a recipe for disaster. If you're just constantly striving, which again, I think we should all be striving sometimes, but if all you're doing is striving, you're not finding rest, you will eventually burn out. You will eventually lose hope. You will eventually run out of energy because you can't pour out of an empty cup because there's nothing left to give. Maybe you've heard this before. I'm going to make it work even if it kills me. I'm going to die trying. Yeah, you probably will. Yeah, maybe you are a hardworking guy, and that's amazing. You're a hardworking woman. Yes, that's amazing. Keep working hard. But please find moments to rest. Striving is important, but rest and seeking Jesus is very important. Rather than striving and searching for answers all the time, let us seek Jesus. Jesus is stronger than you. Jesus is wiser than you. Jesus is bigger than you. Jesus is more creative than you. Jesus is everything that we are not. Stop relying on your own strength to strive and start seeking Jesus. Let's trade striving for seeking. Your striving will only take you so far, but seeking Jesus, seeking Him, striving to find Him, that's when you're going to keep the energy. That's when you're going to find the peace. That's when you're going to find the energy that you've lost, that you've wasted, that you've given to the wrong things. The time and energy, money. Seek Jesus. Learn to rest in His presence. The beautiful thing is you can never earn His love. So you should stop trying to impress Him and start to love Him. Learn to rest in His presence. Let's seek peace over panic. Let's seek prayer over power. Let's seek rest over resolve. Yes, life might be bringing a lot of change. Yes, life may be bringing a lot of transition to your life. Yes, the circumstances around you might not be what you expected, might not be what you planned for, might not be what you prepared for, might not be what you thought it would be. And you might be stuck in this space between where you were and where you're going. You might not even know where you're going yet. But what you do in this space between where you are and where you're going is very important. Let's create health in the midst of change. How do we find health? Make 3 trades, right? What are the 3 trades that you can make? Number 1 is that you can trade grumbling for gratitude. Who we love to be around, the people we love to be around the most? Those who are grateful rather than those who grumble. People who are grateful, who are loving, who are joyful, who are kind, rather than those who are just constantly complaining about their situation and complaining about their circumstance. Yes, life is hard for all of us. But let's learn to be grateful even in the middle of a storm, even in the middle of disaster, even in the middle of panic. Let us trade grumbling for gratitude. And then number 2, trade panic for peace. Panic is natural, but let's make that trade from panic to peace. This peace is so much more beautiful. Panic destroys you. It leaves you exhausted, but peace restores you. It restores your joy, restores your strength, restores your mind, restores it all. Peace is so much more beautiful than panic. Let's pursue peace. And then number 3, trade striving for seeking. Striving is good, but seeking Jesus is the most important thing we can do. Eventually, you're going to run out of energy. Eventually, you're going to get tired, and it's time to fill your cup back out so that you can keep pouring, so that you can keep working. You can never pour from an empty cup. Let's learn to rest in His presence. I think if we can trade grumbling for gratitude, if we can trade panic for peace, and we can trade striving for seeking, the space between becomes much less scary and much less exhausting because our eyes are no longer on ourselves, but our eyes are on Jesus. Let us create health in the midst of the change. I don't know what transition, I don't know what change you are going through, but I want to encourage you. You're almost there. Don't give up. Don't quit. Keep on going. You can do it. make some trades, make some decisions, make some different priorities in your life so that way you can be filled with peace. So that way you can be filled with gratitude. And so that way you can be using your energy that you have to seek Jesus with all that you are. Take a minute to breathe. Take a minute to be grateful. Take a minute to stop the panic and feel his peace. Take a moment to stop striving, stop trying to impress Jesus, and give your mind and give your body a break and seek him. This is how we make the space between easier. This is how we make the space between exciting. This is how we make the space between more beautiful, is by making these trades. And again, I truly believe that God will give you what you need. I know that sometimes the space between is scary. I know sometimes it's intimidating. I know sometimes there's a lot of fear that comes in. I know sometimes we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know if our job's going to be there. Take a moment to breathe. Take some breaths and put your eyes on Jesus. Because what panic does is it puts our eyes on us, puts our eyes on our circumstance, puts our eyes on what we're going through. And peace puts our eyes back on Jesus. So let's put our eyes back on him. The transition might look scary. It might seem crazy. It might even seem just boring. But let's keep our eyes on Jesus. And I believe that you can do this. And I believe that we can do this together.
Thank you for joining us today for the Known Podcast. We have new content coming out every Wednesday, so make sure to come back next week for a new episode. If you haven't yet, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Known Podcast and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. See you next week.